Nasty Gal Vintage was founded in 2006 by Sophia Amoruso. The business name was changed to Nasty Gal in 2008. Before diving into Nasty Gal the business, it is important to understand the background and gain some insight to Sophia Amoruso herself. During her teenage years in California, Sophia was diagnosed with depression and ADHD. Due to the difficulties these issues caused, Sophia quit attending school. In order to complete high school and earn her diploma, she chose homeschooling. After high school, Sophia longed to be free and didn't want to live the normal life. She moved to Sacramento and began hitchhiking up and down the West Coast. She didn't have steady jobs. At times, she would eat food out of a dumpster as she didn't have money for groceries or food from a restaurant. She also started stealing. Her life-changing event occurred in 2003 in Oregon. In Portland, Oregon, Sophia was caught stealing by a store's loss prevention officer. She was fined, but did not go to jail. This event marked the time in her life when she stopped stealing and living the nomadic lifestyle. Sophia moved to San Francisco, started attending a local community college, and rented herself a small apartment. During this time in college, Sophia worked at the Academy of Art University, first as a ticket taker for events and eventually as a security guard. During this time, she also read a book called Starting an eBay Business for Dummies. Sophia never did finish her college degree. Sophia started her eBay business called Nasty Gal Vintage out of her apartment in 2006 at the age of 22. She originally started the business as a way to earn some extra money to pay bills. She would find used vintage articles of clothing, accessories, and miscellaneous items by attending estate sales and thrift stores. She was her own photographer, wrote her own copy describing the product, processed the shipping, and handled all communications with her customers. Sophia named her business after a 1975 song written by Betty Davis called Nasty Gal. Items sold on the Nasty Gal Vintage site were not only classic, but also were different from the styles that were in the market. Her clothing was also called edgy. The first item sold on her eBay site was a book she actually stole during her teenage years. Nasty Gal Vintage was growing so quickly that by 2008, Sophia was able to move away from the eBay platform and launched the Nasty Gal website. The launch to its own website legitimized Nasty Gal as an e-commerce retailer. Sophia and the Nasty Gal business benefited from a very large following of teenagers and young women via social media platforms. By 2012, Nasty Gal began selling clothing under its own brand name.
So let's talk about the strengths of Nasty Gal. One of the major strengths of Nasty Gal was its strong brand awareness. Within the first 8 years of its foundation, Nasty Gal had more than 1 million fans on Facebook and Instagram. It was a well-recognized brand in the US, and it was on its way to being a recognized brand abroad. Another major strength was the strong customer involvement that Sophia Amoruso had with her customers. Amoruso took customers' feedback very seriously, and she believed that customers were the center of everything Nasty Gal did. So if it was a negative or a positive comment, she wanted to know. The last strength that we're going to talk about is the high margins. Because of the strong brand awareness and the customer involvement, Nasty Gal had high margins. They were able to charge premium prices on products that their competitors couldn't charge premium prices. So that was another major strength. Nasty Gal's weakness. Amoruso's lack of focus. As the company grew, so did her fame, and so she started focusing less and less on the company, which resulted on waste of resources and money. And this was due to the fact that without Amoruso completely focused on the company, the employees didn't have a clearer strategy to follow while she was not there. Nasty Gal's missed opportunities were expanding into international markets through the use of social media, investing in technology, which could have improved their operations and lower their costs, and also implementing a new CEO who could manage the company while Amoruso focused on publicity. One of Nasty Gal's major threat was its business model because it could be easily replicated. So this led to strong competition. Nasty Gal had a hard time holding on to customers who now were more attracted to fast fashion retailers such as Zara and H&M, who could provide lower prices and were constantly changing their merchandise, those having a larger variety.
So now that we know a little bit more about Nasty Gal, we're going to be talking about the social media aspects of the company. Which brings us to our first question of the case. How was social media related to Nasty Gal's business model? So the company started on MySpace, which quickly went to eBay, then eventually evolved into her own website platform. She then used other avenues of social media to expand her customer base. Through this social media push, she gained millions of followers that helped her reach her target audience of customers. So next we have part 2 of question 1, which is, to what extent was Nasty Gal a social business? Considering most of her growth came from a rise in her social media presence, I would say that makes Nasty Gal a pretty socially driven business. Because without MySpace or the millions of followers she gained later on, who's to say the company would have ever gained the market share it had in its prime?
So let's look at the problems that Nasty Gal faced, specifically management, organization, and technology. In this case, management is a big one. In 2012, they were embarking on making their own line of clothes, a brand new business for them. The first issue was they started too big. They didn't do a test market or begin with trusted partners. Instead, they built their own 500,000 square foot warehouse. Then, the following year, a 50,000 square foot headquarters in Los Angeles, followed by 2 retail stores the next 2 years. An enormous capital outlay and a lot that needs to be supported by revenue. The next error management made was in marketing. They didn't understand their core customer. They had clothes for young, hip, edgy women in California, and that may not have translated to other geographies, and as well may have been seasonal. That lace top that was fine in LA may not sell very well in Minnesota in the winter. They also didn't understand their competition. They were going into mass market retail against entrenched competitors like H&M, who were just better at this than they were. Another management misstep was understanding quality. Their vintage clothes were designer clothes, premium brands like Chanel. When they started making their own clothes, they couldn't make that premium level at the discount prices that their customers were used to paying. They had to sell discount clothes, and the quality reflected that, which also put them right in direct line with their competition of other stores that were better at it, like H&M and other retailers. The final issue is management didn't deliver on the bottom line. They were spending enormous money on promotions and advertisings, and sure, it generated great sales numbers, but they weren't getting repeat customers, and largely due to the other issues mentioned, their lack of quality. They're competing against entrenched competitors, and they're not understanding their core niche market. They were spending too much to get too little revenue. We've talked about the problems Nasty Gal had with its customers. Now let's look internal organizationally at the issues that they had. As Nasty Gal grew but failed to make any profit, it created a toxic work environment. There were numerous layoffs, even questionable layoffs, where workers who were sick or pregnant were fired and later sued the company. Additionally, they had an absentee leadership problem. Sophia, the company's founder, was now writing books. She had a Netflix series she was producing. She was out on tour, making speaking engagements, and not at the company during this critical time of growth. All right, let's take a look at technology and Nasty Gal. Technology worked great. Sophia Amoruso was able to build a multi-million-dollar clothing business using eBay to sell and using social media to market. And it was wonderful until the plans turned to a not profitable business model. And it continued to work and sell clothes unprofitably until the company went bankrupt. I think a better use of technology would have been to better monitor customer sentiment and stay closer to their customers and not go down the unprofitable path.
Could Nasty Gal have avoided bankruptcy? Yes, bankruptcy could have been avoided. Three key items to consider for Nasty Gal to avoid bankruptcy are incorporating in-depth cost analysis prior to expanding her business, incorporating business and financial consultants earlier in the process, and enrolling in leadership or business training to offset lack of experience in corporate retail. When considering expansion of a business, it is important that you understand all the costs associated with that decision and not just the increase in revenue. Sophia failed to do an in-depth cost analysis, and by not doing so, she only saw the revenue but did not understand that the expenditures that she potentially faced would exceed the growth in revenue and ultimately result in a loss of profit and a future bankruptcy for her company. Utilization of business and financial consultants is an important step in your business process. Although Sophia did utilize consultants, she waited until later in the process to seek their help. By using them earlier in her decision-making process, she would have been able to use things such as cost analysis and even market trend analysis to understand the changes in the industry, as well as understand things like her cost-benefit ratio to help avoid the bankruptcy that came ahead. Enrollment in some form of formal leadership or business training would have proven beneficial for Sophia as a way to offset the lack of experience she had in corporate retail. By doing so, she would have gained a better understanding of business basics, as well as been exposed to classes such as IS 8090 that give an in-depth experience of how using technology can increase production while also reducing operational costs. This would have been very key in avoiding bankruptcy.